Who is this gentleman here, if I may ask?
Hello, my name is Bob Smith. For the past 15 years, I've been active in various civil rights and peace efforts. For the past 5 years, I've been part of the Brandywine Peace Community, which, as its focus, has focused on General Electric's reentry division as typified in its production of the Mark 12A reentry vehicle, MIRV, or warhead, multiple warheads. As Bill...
That's a serious message. Are you getting good sound? Can you tell? Okay, excuse me for interrupting.
As Bill just spoke, the Mark 12A MIRV, multiple independently targeted reentry vehicle, is a multiple warhead for Minuteman III missiles, also intended for Trident II and Missile X missiles, which, because of its ability to carry a larger H-bomb, an H-bomb of 335 kilotons, the equivalent of 30 Hiroshimas, and because of its accuracy, the ability to explode its H-bomb within 600 feet of a target, namely a missile silo, for which it is intended, it is very much part of the burgeoning counterforce or first strike policy of the United States. I think that in a culture that's inundated with a fascination with technology, we must realize that the very production of such a technology hastens its use, indeed demands its use. We could even say, as has been said so many times before, that the technology creates the policy. That is, the ability to do something creates the opportunity and the context for its fulfillment, which is to say that the ability to do it, if we can do it, it will be done. And that is what, yes, that these kinds of weapon systems, first strike weapon systems, of which the Mark 12A is a part, hasten a first strike nuclear war posture and therefore nuclear war.
What about the traditional conservative argument that seems to state that without military force, we are in a weakened position in terms of our international situation? I mean, the whole thing is that, like Reagan's particular standing, is that we have to be strong, we have to invest more money into the military, which is actually what's happening today. And I wonder what's your feeling about that?
Well, nuclear weapons is not guaranteed peace. We've lived in a balance of terror for 35 years, and a balance of terror is not a state of peace, it's a state of Cold War always hedging towards hot war. It has not prevented conventional wars, it has not prevented revolutions worldwide. It has not guaranteed justice, and justice is the prerequisite for peace. Secondly, while the balance of terror has kept a lid in terms of nuclear war, the burgeoning first strike technology systems such as the Mark 12A produced by General Electric, such as the Mark 500, a maneuverable reentry vehicle or warhead being developed by General Electric, etc., etc. The lid on the balance of terror is being removed, and the terror will leak out in terms of a first strike nuclear war posture, and therefore nuclear war. So what we're saying is that the only security that we have any right to, that is truly secure, is community between people and resistance to the bomb. At General Electric, at Lockheed, at the War Department or Pentagon. And hence our people continually go to these sites in witness and resistance, risking arrest to challenge the lawful production of the bomb, of weapons, of Mark 12As. We commit civil disobedience because the production of these horrid weapon systems are quite legal, and so to challenge the legal principle on which their continued production rests.
You said community. Do you consider that American community, North American community, international community? And in which sense would you define community?
Well, community is, in any biblical sense, is the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live together. We're supposed to live in harmony. We're supposed to live as though one another matters, which is to say people come before profit, people come before technology, etc. And so many of us who live in community see that as an expression, as a microcosm, if you will, a symbol of the need for human family, the need to appreciate that we are a human family, and that nuclear weapons represent fratricide, ultimately omnicide. Hence, a clashing or a throwing asunder of any notion of human family. And so community, when I would speak of community, yes, that means a community of culture, and yes, that means a community of religion, but it also means a community of humankind. And we attempt to express that in the way we live, and part of the way we live is to challenge those things, those realities, namely the producing of Mark 12As, namely the very existence of a General Electric's reentry division, as a virtual assault on human beings, and therefore in humanity, therefore in belief in God, therefore in human family. Human family is an expression of God.
So basically, if I may say so, the protest here is a protest against what you feel is illegal in terms of natural law, in terms of the harmony of community and of human beings that's being perpetrated within GE, while, ironically enough, the people who are making that statement are being prosecuted as being those who are breaking the law. Maybe you could talk about that paradox.
Well, it's an age-old contradiction of secular law, that those who would uphold higher law, namely natural law, as you would call it, or God-made law as revealed in scriptural truth, or even more recent applications and introduction of international law, that it has been one of those old age adages that those who attempt to uphold higher laws come into conflict with human-made or socially defined laws. I would here distinguish between laws and law. I mean, we very much uphold law. That is something which God gives us, which in the very deepest parts of our hearts and our consciences we know to be right, and that is the only reason for law, is for what is right. And we deep down inside ourselves know that it is wrong to murder, that it is wrong to kill, it is wrong to inflict violence, it is wrong to hold people in subjugation. And so, hence, it is one of those age-old adages that those who would attest to a higher law come into conflict with the secularly prescribed laws of their time. And so, hence, for example, when some of us do what is politically referred to as civil disobedience, we call it holy obedience.
And there's like historical precedent for that kind of action.
Biblically, there's one example after another. In terms of our own history, there is the very founding of this country. There is the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King. There's Gandhi. There's any number of historical examples. And it seems to me that if we are going to be true to history and to the reality of history and to the unfolding of human events, we have to hold up those examples. We need to hold up those examples. If we are committed to a history of life, a history of human beings, a history of justice, we need to hold up the examples of people's movements that have struggled nonviolently for social change, for justice, for other human beings.
What about the fear that a lot of American people have in terms of the Soviet Union? Now, we've been talking about community and about the ideals that certain historical people have presented in terms of representing a higher law. But I think that there's, on a very practical level, an everyday man, so to speak, that there's a tremendous amount of fear that exists in middle America, so to speak, in terms of the Soviet threat. And how would you address that threat? Do you think it's a real threat? And what would you say to middle America about this kind of protest and about your perspective?
nuclear weapons should be feared. We should be terrified of nuclear weapons. Any nation that holds nuclear weapons, we should be afraid of. Having said that, I think we need to get some bit of historical leverage on all of this. Historically, the Soviet Union has mimicked everything the United States has done. Truly, it is a paranoid political system. And paranoia is something that is a fear which is exaggerated. And they do have reasons, historically, to be fearful in terms of encirclement, in terms of the fear of invasion. Remember their 1917 revolution. The Allies, including the United States, invaded the Soviet Union on behalf of the Mensheviks, or the White Army, in opposition to the Bolshevik Army, the Communist Revolution. But their fear of encirclement, which in a contemporary sense means their fear, a very valid fear, that every nuclear weapon in the world is targeted on the Soviet Union. Every nation in the world, with the exception of the Soviet Union, that possesses nuclear weapons has those nuclear weapons targeted on the Soviet Union. So they do have reason to fear. The United States has every reason to fear. We all have every reason to fear any nation that possesses nuclear weapons. So we have to begin to confront the fear. We have to begin to confront the fear. I mean, at heart, the spiritual heart of every warhead is fear. And we have to begin to confront that. We have to begin to look at other nations as human beings, look past their governments. Their governments betrayed them. Our government has betrayed us. The Soviet government has betrayed its people and its revolution a long time ago. As long as we rely on force and the ability to inflict violence, we are not relying on true principles of government, which is to say the orderly governance of society. And so, just to go back to some more historical perspective, however, the Soviet Union has technologically followed the United States in terms of every development in the nuclear arms race since 1945, and normally with a period of separation between 4 to 5 years. The atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. The Soviets developed the atomic bomb in 1950. And that has been a pattern that has continued throughout, with the United States technologically leading, setting the example, setting the conditions for balance of power, setting the conditions for superpower status. The Soviets very much wanting to be part of that superpower illusion follow suit.
So you see it as an illusion that's shared then by the government of the United States and the government of the Soviet Union. Is there any message that you could concisely put, so to speak, to the people of the world in terms of this issue? I mean, if you had an opportunity to speak to the Soviet people, if you had an opportunity to speak to the people in southern France, you had an opportunity to speak to people in Argentina or whatever, what would you say to them?
Care about your children. If you care about your children, you will resist the policies of governments that threaten their very futures.
I wanted to get your names just again so I don't forget them.
Bill Whistler.
Bob Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, I can break. I don't have very much. Thank you. Both you guys.